Picture this. It's July 4th, 1187. The sun hasn't fully risen, and already the heat is unbearable.
Thousands of soldiers, turf knights in full armor hates, are desperately searching for water.
There isn't any. The nearest lake is just a few miles away. But between them and that lake stands the most dangerous army in the medieval world. And its leader has been waiting for this exact moment for years. His name is Saladin. And today, he will do something no one in 88 years dared attempt. He will destroy the Crusader kingdom of Jerusalem completely in a single afternoon.
But here's the thing. This wasn't a battle. This was a trap. One so perfectly set that the Crusaders walked right into it.
Step by step. And they never even saw it coming. To understand what happened at Hattin, you need to understand what the Crusaders thought they were. They believed they were invincible. And honestly, for nearly 90 years, they had reason to believe that. In 1099, the First Crusade had done the impossible. A European army marched 3,000 miles, captured Jerusalem, and held it, against all logic, against all odds. Since then, the Crusader states had survived every Muslim counterattack.
They had powerful castles, elite knights, and a religious belief that God himself protected them.
But by 1187, cracks were showing. Their kingdom was divided. Their leaders hated each other. And a new enemy had risen, one who had spent years watching them, learning their weaknesses, and planning something they'd never see coming. Saladin, full name Salah ad-Din Yusuf ibn Ayyub, was not born a king. He was a Kurdish soldier from northern Iraq. He started as a student of war, then became a general, then a sultan. By 1187, he controlled Egypt, Syria, and most of the land surrounding the Crusader states. He had unified the Muslim world for the first time in decades, and he had done it without being cruel. That was the unusual part. Even his Christian enemies respected him. He kept his promises. He spared prisoners. He treated the defeated with dignity.
But do not mistake kindness for weakness, because on the battlefield, Saladin was a chess player.
He thought 12 moves ahead, and in 1187, he had just made his opening move. He raided the Crusader territory, not to win land, not to take cities, to make them angry, to pull them out of their castles, to make them chase him, right into the trap. The Crusader kingdom of Jerusalem had a king no one respected. His name was Guy of Lusignan. He had gained the throne through marriage, not through ability. His most powerful nobles despised him. His greatest military mind, Raymond of Tripoli, had actually made a private peace deal with Saladin. That tells you everything about how broken the kingdom was. But things got worse. There was another Crusader lord, Raymond of Chatillon, and Raymond was everything Saladin was not. He was reckless, violent. He broke every treaty he signed. He once attacked a Muslim pilgrim convoy, traveling during a period of peace. Saladin had sworn personally to kill him for it. That promise wasn't forgotten. In May 1187, Raymond struck again. He ambushed a Muslim trade caravan, and Saladin's patience, already thin as a blade, finally snapped. He sent a message to King Guy: "Control your men, or face war." Guy did nothing, so Saladin mobilized his full army, 30,000 soldiers, 12,000 cavalry, and one very specific plan. On July 2nd, 1187, Saladin attacked the city of Tiberias. He took the city in less than an hour. Only the citadel held out, defended by Raymond of Tripoli's wife, Eschiva. She sent a desperate messenger to King Guy: "Send help immediately." The Crusader army was camped at Sephoria, just 16 miles away, 20,000 men, including 1,200 heavily armored knights, the most powerful Crusader force ever assembled. King Guy called his war council. Raymond of Tripoli, the man whose own wife was trapped in Tiberias, stood up and said something shocking: "Do not march!" Everyone stared at him. "Do not march," he repeated. "Saladin wants us to march. This is a trap. The land between here and Tiberias has no water."
We have 20,000 thirsty men. If we march in July heat with no water source, we will arrive exhausted and broken.
and Saladin will be waiting. It was the clearest military advice anyone had ever given King Guy. It was completely correct, and it was completely ignored. Raymond of Tripoli spoke next in that council. He called Raymond a coward. He said refusing to march was treason. He reminded everyone that God was on their side. He was very persuasive. He was also leading everyone to their deaths. King Guy made his decision. They would march at dawn. When Saladin heard the news that the Crusaders had left the safety of Sephoria, his generals say he fell to the ground in prayer. Not fear, not surprise, gratitude. Because they had done exactly what he'd planned for. The march began. Immediately, Saladin's cavalry swarmed them, not to fight, to harass. Arrows rained from every direction. Muslim horse archers appeared, fired, and vanished. The Crusaders couldn't chase them. That would break formation. They couldn't stop. They had to reach water, so they just marched and bled and sweated. By mid-morning, men were already passing out from heat and thirst. Horses were dying. The column slowed. Raymond rode back to King Guy and begged him to change course. "There is a spring 2 miles north. We can still survive this." Guy hesitated. The infantry, the foot soldiers, had stopped moving. They screamed that they could not go on. "We camp here," Guy finally ordered. Raymond looked around. They had stopped on a plateau called the Horns of Hattin, a dry, flat, exposed plateau with no water, no cover, and no escape. "Lord God," Raymond reportedly said, "the battle is over. We are dead men." That night, Saladin surrounded them completely. Every road out was blocked. Every direction had Muslim soldiers waiting in the dark. Saladin's men lit fires around the Crusader camp. They let the smoke blow into the Crusader position, choking the men, panicking the horses. Inside the camp, men were in agony. Knights removed their armor because the heat was unbearable. Soldiers drank their own urine. Some wept, some prayed. Some simply lay down and waited for the end. Morning was coming, and with it, Saladin. At dawn, the attack began. Saladin's archers opened first. Thousands of arrows blackened the sky. The Crusader horses screamed and fell. Without horses, the knights were men in heavy armor standing in the desert. The infantry broke first. They ran toward the lake, toward the water they could see in the distance. They didn't make it. Raymond of Tripoli led the only cavalry charge that escaped. Saladin actually ordered his men to part and let Raymond through. Raymond wasn't the target. The rest of the army was. The knights made 3 desperate charges up the hill. 3 times they were driven back. Each time, fewer men stood back up. Saladin watched from a hilltop. His son rode up to him and cried out, "We've won! We've defeated them!" Saladin replied quietly, "Be silent. We have not won until that tent falls." He meant King Guy's royal tent, still standing on the hill. Then it fell, and Saladin wept, not from sadness, from relief. 88 years of Crusader occupation ended in one morning. The Crusader losses were catastrophic. Over 15,000 soldiers killed or captured. The True Cross, the most sacred relic in Christendom, was captured. King Guy was taken prisoner, and Raymond of Tripoli was brought before Saladin. Saladin offered Guy water, a sign of mercy. Guy passed the cup to Raymond. Saladin stopped him. "I did not offer him water. I gave it to you, not him." In that culture, if Saladin gave Raymond water, Raymond's life was safe. Saladin had no intention of making it safe. He stood up, drew his sword, and executed Raymond personally. The promise he made years earlier kept. Then he released Guy. Because kings, Saladin believed, were not killed. What followed Hattin was extraordinary. With no army left to defend them, the Crusader cities fell one by one. Acre, Sidon, Beirut, Ascalon, all surrendered within weeks. Then, on October 2, 1187, Saladin entered Jerusalem. He did not massacre the population, as the Crusaders had done when they took it in 1099. He allowed Christians to leave safely. He ransomed those who could pay. He freed those who could not. His own generals, hardened warriors, reportedly wept at his generosity. Hattin didn't just change a battle, it changed the world. When news reached Europe that Jerusalem had fallen, the Pope died from shock. Literally, Pope Urban III reportedly died the day he heard the news. Europe erupted. The result was the Third Crusade. Richard, the Lionheart of England, Philip of France, Frederick Barbarossa of Germany, the greatest kings of Europe, all mobilized. All because of one afternoon on a dry plateau in Galilee. The Third Crusade fought Saladin for years. Richard and Saladin fought to a standstill. Mutual respect, no final winner. But Jerusalem never returned to Crusader hands for long after that. Saladin's victory at Hattin was permanent. He had not simply won a battle. He had dismantled a kingdom by exploiting its arrogance, its divisions, and its blind confidence. He let them believe they were strong. He let them make every bad decision. He set the trap. They walked in, and the most powerful Crusader army in history was destroyed, not by a stronger army, by a smarter one. There is one moment from Hattin that history never quite forgets. After the battle, as prisoners knelt before him, Saladin walked among them. He gave water to the wounded. He spoke to the defeated knights with respect. A Christian chronicler who was there, a prisoner himself, wrote this about Saladin. His generosity humiliated us more than his victory. Think about that for a moment. The man who just destroyed everything you built, destroyed it with mercy. He didn't need to be brutal to be powerful. He didn't need to burn cities to make a point. He simply outthought everyone. He outweighted everyone. And when the moment came, he struck once, and it was enough. For 800 years, military historians have studied Hattin, not just for what Saladin did right, but for what the Crusaders did wrong. Arrogance, disunity, ignoring the voice of reason, letting ego override intelligence. Those three things, not Saladin's sword, destroyed the kingdom of Jerusalem. Saladin just gave them the opportunity to destroy themselves. And they did, perfectly. If this story hit different, if you're sitting there thinking about how Saladin pulled off the perfect trap, then you're exactly the kind of person this channel is made for. We don't do surface-level history here. We go deep into the moments that actually changed the world. The battles nobody told you about in school. The generals who were erased from history. The decisions that turned empires to dust. Hit subscribe and you will not miss what comes next. Because the next story is even more impossible than this one. And somehow, it's all true.